Okay, and we have quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order. I know there's yeah, looks like we have everybody attending. So I just want to point out, I think for the final time, I want to express my gratitude to Sheila Penny, the Chief Operating Officer, who is officially retiring before the end of the week on March the 31st. I want to thank Sheila for all of her years of dedication and hard work and heartfelt efforts to make Toronto community housing a better place. And Sheila, it's been great working with you again, and I'm sure you'll have a very enjoyable, relaxing, and rewarding retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a privilege to serve this committee.
Sheila, when did you join Toronto Community Housing?
In April of 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you have put in your time, right? Well, thank you again very much. And with that, we'll commence with the meeting. Is there a motion? Can I have a motion to approve the public agenda? Moved by Debbie. All in favor? Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Okay, seeing none, then I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of February the 9th. Moved by Marcel. All in favor? Thank you. And then the next item is the Violence Reduction Program update. And although this is on the consent agenda, I wanted to invite members to ask any questions if they had any.
John, I actually am glad that you've taken it off consent. I have a comment, if I may. The report came to the subcommittee, the Community Safety Advisory Committee, and we actually referred the report to the CSU review team for consideration in their review. So I just wanted that minuted and to let folks know that the subcommittee thinks the report is important, but we didn't want to go ahead, because I think one of the contentious issues there, to be candid, is around the pause we've put on the hiring of additional staff for the CSU unit. And so I don't want that to go ahead until we've had a full review of the CSU. And as I said, we received this last week and at the subcommittee and have referred it to the CSU review.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions on the contents of the report from committee members? Okay, I have a question for staff, and that is, what have been the budget implications for the non-hiring of CSU and for the leaving open of vacancies of the community service officers and the additional costs that may have been incurred as a result of hiring G4S security?
So, Mr. Chair, you are correct that in order to fill staffing requirements in the current VRP sites, we have had to hire contract security in those locations. And I would ask Senior Director Britton if he has anything further he'd like to add.
Yes. Good morning, Chair and committee members. In regards to the 20 vacant VRP positions, that currently it costs us about $2,100,000 to staff through G4S, and the 12 positions related to the holding of hiring, those 12 positions cost about $1.24 million per year to staff with G4S.
Sorry, could you just run that by me again? So there was the vacancies must have resulted in a savings, but what was the net cost to the organization?
Yes, my apologies. We currently have 20 vacancies because, again, with COVID, we've been in a difficult hiring period. So we are 20 vacancies short in VRP. We're holding the 12 as mentioned as directed. The 12 cost is $1.24 million to staff through G4S, and the total 20 vacancies that we currently have through attrition and other factors is costing us $2.1 million per year to staff through G4S.
Okay, and what has been the effect on community security as a result?
G4S provide a very good service to us as a third-party provider. The one problem we do have is their duties are limited in scope. So when they do detain someone for a trespass or intervene in a situation, they still have to call our staff to attend. So I'd say security, the tenants are still being provided with a level of security. However, the redundancy in the process and the limited scope of their abilities does cause more work on the back end, which is duplication and unnecessary. But again, Special Constable provide a more broad spectrum of service to the tenants, but security, our tenants are secure at this time.
And then the final question I have, I believe, is it's found on page 4 of 20 of the report in the middle paragraph. And it said, on Saturday, November 20th, VRP staff organized a community incident debrief. A large group of tenants came out to voice their concerns about the escalation of violent incidents. Can you tell me how many people turned out and what was said?
I can definitely get the exact number. I don't have that at this time.
Just approximately, was it 100, 200? Was it, you know?
No, it was definitely, my understanding was less than 100. It would be in the 50 to 75 range, but I would have to confirm the number. And the concerns were really about when a violent crime occurs, unfortunately, all matters are brought to the table and we look at it in totality. And what we try to do is we work with our community safety advisors, with our community service coordinators, and we try to provide supports to the tenants that need it, but also repair issues that have led to it. And sometimes it's a damaged security camera, sometimes it's a door that isn't locking properly. So our community safety advisors do safety audits of buildings immediately after a major incident, and we staff 2 special constables there for a 72-hour period. So the concerns that were raised were a lot relating to the safety specific to those areas, which we tried to address through the audit and higher staffing levels.
Okay, thank you. Any other, yes, Sheila?
I just wanted to add, Al referenced the CSCs, the Community Services Coordinators, who actually report up through the regional team, through the regional directors. So they work with CSU when those events happen. They're on site with CSU to understand what the program needs are for the community, what additional supports are required.
Okay, any other questions from committee members? Councillor Fletcher.
It's just after a violent incident that's held in the community, of course, the police attend, correct?
That is correct, Councillor.
And the community actually, in general, since I've been to so many of these, just really wants to hear from the police what they're doing because of their vast reach that they have. Would you not agree with that?
I definitely agree, Councillor, that they want the community members want to hear from the police about the violent crime that occurred, but about the factors that led to it quite often are CSU related, totally. TCHC related. Yes.
Well, the factors that are there's a light out, there isn't a camera. I've been to so many of these, and would you not agree with me that I guess I'll ask Sheila that a lot of this is actually through the maintenance and site supervision staff, that when it's the plan it's a community safety plan or a walk, and it's really and truly left in the hands of those who fix lights, fix doors, all those kinds of things in general.
Yeah,
it's not CSU that's going to change the light. And then when we get these, if we see that there's a lot of deficiencies, then that of course would worry you, because it means that the property isn't being maintained properly. Would you agree?
So I would agree that it's a full company effort when one of those events occurs, and we look at all aspects in the community. And if there are maintenance issues that need to be addressed, they're addressed.
Yes, thank you. So I agree with Al. Yeah, seen people want to talk about what they've seen that they want fixed. And even in, I want to ask Ms. Keith that, but even revitalization meetings, they all want something fixed. They come to those meetings. But as well, in the report that we looked at earlier, a lot of there's a part of the CSU that takes hampers to doors and picks up things for Christmas and those kinds of things. I believe I read that, and the review that's underway would look at, is that the best, are those staff the best to do those things, correct?
Correct.
And if we hire all these staff, then it's different, then they're full-time and there's pension, et cetera, it's accruing. So this is a pause in order to really delineate the actual roles of CSU versus other types of staff.
You're correct. There's a review underway that will look at all those factors.
Great, thank you very much.
So I'm a little unclear, and it's my fault for not recollecting why we've let. And I understand there's a review, and why, maybe Jag, you could answer this, or Sheila. Why have we let the complement of officers run down by so many when in the report it says that 20% of the shootings that occur in Toronto community housing, and that community housing represents 4% of the population, but 20% of the shootings happen. Why can somebody remind me the process that we're going through? Jag?
Yeah, through the chair, I believe our senior director had indicated that it's not necessarily just the 12 positions that we're holding, but just as a result of COVID, we've seen a significant amount of turnover within the CSU division. And from a staffing perspective, it's not, certainly there is a training component. So, and I believe in most first responder type scenarios, they look to hire with waves because of the training complement that would be associated with bringing them on board. But I'd invite certainly Sheila and the senior director to add to that.
Al, if you could just outline the training that a special constable receives when they join the company.
I guess actually I don't know that I need that, but I guess what I need to know is what's the plan for restoring the complement?
Yes, Chair. In
Sorry,
2000,
can I just ask, John, do
sorry.
you mean restoring because of the folks that have left?
Restoring the staffing complement. What I just want to know, is there a plan to restore the staffing complement, or
Which staffing complement, please?
for the CSUs?
John, there are two different cohorts. There are the 12 positions that the board held until we do a full review of CSU. And as Councillor Fletcher has said, one of the things is to determine how hiring is done, but even more importantly, how staff are deployed and what their activities are. And then, as the senior director has indicated, because of COVID and attrition and those kinds of things, there are an additional 8 vacancies. So that's why we're asking, which is it that you're asking about?
Oh, shit.
Mr. Campbell, can you hear us?
Somebody swearing here? John Campbell?
Mr. Campbell, can you hear us?
Sorry, to the question, Al, if you wouldn't mind speaking to the net 8 positions and the plan for staffing those positions.
Yes, what occurred is in 2019, CSU had an expansion where the VRP program started. At that time, we were already a couple of positions behind because of attrition and other factors, retirements and so on. So what we've been doing since 2019 is trying to catch up. And unfortunately, COVID put us behind where we were not able to do in-class training. So our total deficiency of special constables from our authorized complement is at this current time 41 special constables. 20 are in the VRP, which is what we've addressed, the 12 that are on hold, plus 8 additional vacancies. The other 21 are in the front line. So we do have a very clear and robust plan to fill that. We have our own internal training staff that are very skilled and experienced. We have classes planned for 14 to 16, depending on hiring, how the hiring goes. Because the one factor that is has to be put in is our staff, our special constables have to pass a background check with Toronto Police, and that background check can take anywhere 2 to 4 months before they are hired. And then once they're hired, the training program in totality is anywhere from 4 to 6 months. And at that point, the special constable is then able to be an effective member of our organization. So it's a very long process. So we want to make sure we get the right people. And our plan is to have 2 to 3 classes, depending on the viable candidates that we see for this calendar year, and then obviously hire into the next year as deemed through the review of the committee.
We are holding the 12 positions that were put on hold by TSC and by the board until the review is complete.
That's correct.
Thank you for clarifying. Is John back? Doris, should Uba take over the chair?
I think that may be wise. Mr. Campbell
Well,
seems to be having.
he's telling me he's logging back in. He just had a power failure. He just texted me, had a power failure logging back in. But
That's what I thought. So while we wait for John, if I may, as you're hiring the 8th position, senior director, are you paying attention to the equity conversations we've been having in terms of race and ethnicity and gender, but also in terms of folks living in our communities?
Yes, Director Douglas, we are, and I'm very I'm looking forward to the results of the work, the ongoing work to show the demographics of CSU. I'm very proud of the makeup of our organization. We are very reflective of the community. We have people that are very engaged in the community, and we have several members that were raised in the community. We do consistently recruit in those areas. We have a new cadet program that will be looking at hiring solely from youth within Toronto community housing complexes, and that's going to be hopefully implemented in Q3 to Q4 of this year. So we are very active in the community with our recruiting, and we look forward to hiring more members from the community.
Thank you.
I believe Councillor Nunziata has a question or a comment.
Yeah, just a question. As far as the CSU, is it not important, because I find that whenever we have meetings with tenants and that the CSUs, I mean, they're quite engaged with the tenants, which is very important, and that's what I hear from the tenants. It's they have that engagement. They know them by name, so they're part of the community. So it's important that that we keep them in one location rather than transferring them from one building to another. Am I correct?
That is correct, Councillor Nunziata. We have a very clear transfer policy where the member has to request a transfer, and they have to be embedded in the community for at least 1 year before they can request the transfer. It's very rare that people move across. They usually stay within their areas because they do enjoy the
Right.
connectivity with the community. We have community assignments and now hub assignments with the new model, where our special constables get to know site staff and members of the community very closely as they work on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's what's really important, because that's what I hear from my tenants in buildings, especially the Falstaff building, is that whenever we have meetings, they know them by name, and they're engaged, and that's really important for the tenants. So I'm glad to hear that, because once you start transferring them from one building to another, they don't know the community, they don't know the issues of the community or the tenants. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you.
My apologies, but I have to leave. John, I had informed John earlier.
Thank you, Director.
Is John back yet?
I don't see him. If there aren't any questions, Ms. Director Uba or Farah, you may want to request a motion to receive the report.
Can I have motion to receive the report, please?
Thank you. I saw Councilor Nunziata.
Yeah, thank you. The next item is Integrated Service Model Annual Program Report.
Actually, the next item, Director Farah, is the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee's Chair's Report, item 4.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Dara. I will not be very long. Most of this committee actually is on that, except for the chair, I think. Directors Upa, Charlebois, Nunziata, myself, and Douglas. And then our chair isn't. So anyway, we all, just for the public, we have approved sent terms of reference from the Neptune 4 back to staff to simply get it touched up a tiny bit more. And we have received information on the Q4 report in public. We are still looking at the categories of communities and next steps. That I think, not sure when that will be coming, Dara, back to the TSC or directly to the board. And then we spent quite a bit of time on the CSU and the terms of reference, because as you know, 18 months ago, the board asked the city to assist in a review, and unfortunately it's taken so long, but they are now poised to do that. So we had a very big discussion about what that looked like, what they'd be reviewing, and we're going to have another meeting in April to look at their terms of reference one more time. We also received, and I'm not sure where this will actually go, Dara, maybe you could tell us the internal audit review on the CSU. We forwarded that to the review committee for CSU, but that might be formally sent somewhere and I'm unsure. So I'll leave that up to you to let us know about that. So it was a very good meeting. Just want to thank staff. I thank Sheila very much at the meeting for being so patient in getting to what I'll call the right mix on our community categories and the areas that we'd looked at between violent communities, communities with vulnerability, periodic problems, and just simply stable communities, and having taken the seniors into their own section. So thank you, Sheila. It's been a year, but it's been worth the wait, because I think when we get to be able to use this, it's going to be very good. It is an internal document, however, it's not a public document here at the board. So again, just echoing what John said earlier, hats off, Sheila, thank you very much. I think this is a legacy piece for you, having left this for everybody to be able to implement good work around the core information that your team has put together over the last while. So that's
Thank
my
you.
report.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you,
Probably no
Councillor.
questions because everybody was there except John, and he's not on the call. So I'll just, I'll move that. Thanks.
And sorry, in the moment, I skipped over the business arising. So thank you, Director Ferry. You may want to inquire if any directors have questions arising out of the business arising from past meetings.
Any questions? Comment?
Oh, well, we're doing the participatory budget today. We're doing revitalization. I think we're fine. I think we're fine, Uba.
Yeah.
All these things are coming forward when they're supposed to.
So do I need a
So-
motion to?
I'll move
Just a
to
motion.
receive that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So item
And
5 is
Is there a
integrated
motion
service.
to receive my report? I'll move that the board receive item 4, the verbal report from the chair.
Okay. Any seconder?
Thank you,
All
Councilor
in
Nunziata.
favor? Thank you. So item 5, we are on item 5, yeah?
Yes, and we have 2 deputants in relation to item 5. The first deputant, I believe, is Maureen Clahisi, and I believe that Ms. Clahisi is on the line.
Just one, sorry, Dara. The
Sorry.
participatory budgeting, are we not having this discussion today? Or we have it here as an update? It's so confusing sometimes.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Just go back to item 3. Business arising. I'm sorry to do this. My apologies. Report on business arising. Item 1, participatory budgeting. I think we better revisit that. I think we just approved all of that before we went to ISM. Did we not?
So the update in relation to the participatory budgeting program is indicated in the in item 3 and as item 1 on that list is that prior to re-implementation of the participatory budget program, management would bring back the plan for the program to tenant services for discussion, and the status of that matter is that it is in progress and will be brought back before the program is reintroduced. So there is a briefing note on PB, I believe that is at page 45 of the meeting package that spoke to some specific questions that were asked at the committee meeting of February 9. And as I say, that briefing note is found at page 45 of the meeting package.
Okay, I guess if there's a work plan, and I think if there's a work plan, that's more than just a report back, because this is a subject we're still looking at very deeply from many different ways, including the name of it, which I've raised so many times. So we'll let that come back, but I don't want tenants to think that this is starting right back up. And the name of it is rather important, what the name of it has been over many years. So I don't know how you'd like to do this. Leave it for later. What I don't want you to do is do too much work. If this is a status report.
It is a status report, and I think Sheila may want to add, but I believe that it outlines the plan that management is recommending in terms of the process through which ultimately our report would be brought back to committee on the reintroduction of the program.
But Dara, that isn't the status report if it's recommending a plan. That's an action report, because this is under quite deep review, as you know. And this.
So
if
sorry, Sheila.
If I could, when there was a plan that set out the steps that the PB review would go through, that was presented at Tenant Services February 9. Councillor, we were asked for 4 pieces of information in response to that plan. What was communicated to tenants regarding PB's discontinuance, what items were ordered under the former program but not delivered, a review of the procurement and pricing approach, and the program name with a direction to appropriately rename the program. So what is contained in the briefing note that's in your package are a summary of the communications that went out to tenants regarding the fact that the PB program was canceled in 2021. Those sample communication materials are attached. There is a list by region of the number of communities, the number of items not delivered by region. There is an indication that a review of procurement and pricing and the program rename will come forward with the review of PB. So we're providing some of the information that we were able to, that was requested at the last Tenant Services Committee. with an updated work plan with some with a time frame attached.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. And just to be clear, on page 47, items ordered not delivered. Were those items paid for?
Sorry.
You have a page item by region.
Right.
You don't have, and you don't have the seniors in there for some reason, if they were ordering things from the catalog. 124 items were not delivered. Were 124 items purchased but not delivered.
So the records that we have indicate that they were not purchased. They were approved, but disrupted mid-flight. So they were not purchased, they were not delivered.
We'll be wondering, I'm just going to ask you, Jag, we're going to find out how everything was, communities thought they ordered things and then they weren't purchased and what happened there. There's quite a few things through 60 communities out of 247, so a quarter of them.
My apologies, and through the chair, and Councillor Fletcher, if I've misinterpreted the question, I apologize, and I'll look for clarification. But I believe that through the operations team, they would have communicated back to those tenants that, or those groups that would have made the request as to the status of those items that would have been ordered, that were approved, and that they would have had expectations around. And Sheila, is that correct?
That's correct.
They would, that since we're having this look into it, they've reported that back, but not prior to that, correct?
I would have to confirm that timing.
They've only known since we started looking at taking an in-depth look. Before that, they were not aware.
I'd have to confirm that, Councillor.
Well, I can confirm that through all the people that didn't get things in my ward that
Yeah.
didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to know because that's a lot of things. Okay, thank you.
Apologies for the short circuit here. Thing
I
went
hope
just.
you didn't get electrocuted.
I didn't know. No, it was. I don't know if it was the computer or what happened, but I had to reboot it and then get the link, and the link doesn't work through Bell, so I had to send it to another email, and it was too long to explain. So, are we on Business Arising, or what are we on?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just took us back there. That's fine.
This was
Thank
on
you.
the participatory budgeting. Let me
Yeah.
guess, right?
I'll
Okay.
just, move that.
All right. So we
We already
to-
moved it and I just went back to ask questions and thank
See
you
it
for
then,
your,
okay. All
there
right.
you go. So now we're up back to the regular agenda.
So now we're on the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee
We've done all that.
Chair's report. That's done. So we're on number 5, Integrated Service Model Report.
Yeah.
And I think we're ready for the first deputant in relation to that.
Perfect. Okay. And I've got that as being Maureen Closey. Maureen, are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Great, thank you. Okay, so you've got 5 minutes to speak to the committee.
Okay, well, I'll start now then.
Thank you.
I just, I'm speaking on the ISM and some of its related factors. The ISM annual report, it was very well put together. It's obvious that the staff worked very hard on putting this together, and they've worked very hard in trying to implement this ISM over the last little while. I do appreciate the fact they've had to work through COVID and systems changes, and I also appreciate the fact that they have clearly commented that there's still a lot of work to be done. At the current time, it's not, the written report is not a really accurate reflection of what is happening at the building level. There are a lot of details omitted. There seems to be a line where the upper management writes about the implementation, and then below the line is what is actually happening, and there are a lot of discrepancies there. So again, back to the fact that it still needs work. There are a couple of things that, 3 actually, that I just want to address where the ISM and Toronto Housing overlap. One is the enhanced staffing model with the SSCs. Just prior to bringing on the ISM, Toronto Housing switched to more of a reduction in staff to make it staff by unit. And a lot of the mid-size and smaller buildings have suffered from that. Our staff have 4 buildings to take care of. So there have been ongoing problems with not being able to be where they're supposed to be because issues are arising at other buildings, and there's lists of them. But because of those reductions, when you throw in a part-time SSC, you still don't have an enhanced staffing model. We still have less staff than we did before. And as around their part of their role developing a trusting relationship, their role is designed to wear 2 hats. They're a good guy and a bad guy. So, yes, they want to build supportive, trusting relationships, but their name is also at the bottom of threatening letters saying you're going to be evicted if you don't clean your apartment. So there needs to be some redesign around that role. Sorry, I need a sip of water. The second thing I'd like to bring up is the partnerships, because that's kind of scary to me. The word alignment is used quite frequently, aligning Toronto Housing's existing partnerships for service providers and healthcare providers, and kind of bringing them over and adding to it. And then there's the alignment with the new care coordinators that each building supposedly has that no one has ever met. All of these alignments are going ahead without any consultation with any of the tenants. And there needs to be a lot more discussion at the tenant level as to what kind of services and partnerships that senior tenants want to have developed before any of these things are signed. There's just too much going on behind the tenants' backs here. Thirdly, I'd like to bring up the engagement, and I just want to make it clear right off the bat that in family and seniors buildings, there have been no elections. They're switching to the word selected now. But during all of this process, this refresh process, if one person steps forward and says, I want to be a rep, and one person signs the form for them, that's it, they're the rep. So tenants really haven't had a say on who these reps are. So I just think that the language should be changed on that. Fortunately for the seniors buildings, we are going through a process where our new board is listening to us, and we're developing a new model that has tenant input right from the beginning. But you know, I do still have concern about what's going to happen in the family buildings. In the seniors buildings, one of our roles, I'm a stack member, and one of my roles as a stack member is to communicate.
Maureen, sorry, 20 seconds to go, please.
Okay. We'd like to have access to information so that we can contact other tenants within the seniors portfolio. Anyway, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much for coming forward and offering your commentary. Any questions from members of the committee?
Yep. I have some.
Maureen, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Great. Councillor Fletcher has a couple of questions.
Thank you. I was going to ask you if you're a member of STAC, but you've said you're a member of STAC, so that's great. And this report we have, it's 100 pages, which you've read or seen. Did STAC have any review of that or look into that or discussion about this report? Attachment 1?
We were sent an email 2 to 3 days prior to the report being finalized, and we were invited to a meeting. A lot of the STAC members needed to have the report delivered in paper form, and it was done so. We did not have a long time to review it. So it was basically just a scan, a meeting, and that's it. It's being submitted over the weekend. So, I mean, I have gone through it, and I go through it, and then I just get fed up and put it down because it's not realistic. You know, I've gone through pages of it and sort of ticked off, wait a minute, wrong language, wait a minute, not really the way it is. And you know, there's 6 ticks on one page, 9 ticks on another page. It looks really nice, and the plan itself is a good idea, but it's not what's really happening. It's not accurate. If you want to get it right, it has to be accurate.
So that is the report for 2021. And so you're telling me STAC didn't really have a lot to do with that. And then the designated care coordinators in 47 of the 8. First of all, just tell me you have one person doing 4 buildings. Did I hear that right?
That's our building staff. So it's because of the Toronto Housing staffing model where they've kind of switched more to a staff per unit model.
Yes.
So smaller buildings and mid-sized buildings have had their building staff cut. But there's been no recognition of the fact that, hey, wait a minute, we've got 4 boilers. We've got 4 faulty old plumbing systems. We've got 4 buildings to shovel. You know, so they're running all over the place. There's 4 times the garbage bins. So it doesn't work. Staff are being run ragged.
In the seniors.
And then you throw in a part-time SSC.
Sorry, senior care coordinator, correct?
Senior services coordinator.
Oh, senior service. And have you met those people? Are they in your building or part of the 4 buildings? I'm unclear how that works.
Yes, the SSCs are also based on number of units, and they have up to 400 units that they manage. Our SSCs are not on the same building. They don't have the 4 buildings that the building staff have. They have 2 buildings, this one and another one.
Okay.
To combine close to the 400. And then they work, I guess, with Health Ontario, with the community care coordinators, but we've never met them.
So there's a lot of attempts
so
to
they're deciding on what health services we need without ever having come to the building.
I see. Okay, I'll
There's
ask
too
that
much
question.
top-heavy decision being done.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Thank you very
You're
much,
welcome.
Maureen.
Thanks for asking.
I just have, Maureen, one question in regard to the representation. You mentioned that you were not aware of elections or the people could come forward to be representatives. You had some, could you just outline again, please, your comments and concerns about that process?
Certainly, thank you for asking. Elections weren't held in the buildings. I haven't spoken to anyone that has actually had an election. Staff came out, asked who wanted to be a rep or be a committee member. If people said, yes, I want to be a rep, they were given a form to sign, and they had to get one other signature on it. And when they got that signature, they were the rep. That's it.
Do you think
so tenants really haven't chosen their reps?
Do you think that maybe is because of a lack of people coming forward to indicate that they wanted to be a rep? Obviously, if it's an acclamation, there's not much point in having a vote.
I think what you need to do is offer the opportunity to have a vote, and that was never offered.
Okay, we'll follow up. We'll follow up with staff on you bringing that forward, and thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. And I'm sure Councillor Fletcher will also have some questions of staff as a result of what you've said today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Mr. Bill Lohman.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Campbell.
So you've got 5 minutes to speak to the committee and staff, and please proceed when you're able to do so.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sharma, committee members, and best wishes to you, Ms. Penny. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee this morning. Over the past 5 years, I've come before this committee on numerous occasions to critique the approach and raise concerns about the process and the methods used around senior inclusion and tenant engagement. This report is a good reflection of the senior housing management effort to set up and get staffing in place to be ready in time for the inauguration of the new Seniors Corporation on June 1. But after a year of being a STAC member and that effort, there's been no demonstrative change to the integrated service model or the meaningful expression of the seniors lens that might alter the years of negotiating stakeholders' needs and defining the accountabilities that makes everyone happy except seniors who weren't invited to the table. The integrated service model does not engage or even consider the needs of seniors beyond the 6 priority areas that are listed: property management, safety and security, communication with staff, access to support and service, tenancy management, and community development. Direct senior input has been absent from the beginning of this project. There's been no tenant inclusion throughout the integrated service model integration and no policy input to the transition process to the new corporation. And it's ignoring the mandated shareholders' direction as well as council's members' motion reasserting that demand. The only noticeable influence to the integrated service model and this annual report that seniors can claim is the Appendix B, where the Seniors Advisory Committee feedback details. Otherwise, it's the same flawed model adorned with positive wording and expectation. So all of these, I appreciate the effort of the housing and the transition team to include the senior-centric lens despite a certain intransigence, and I applaud the inclusion of these suggestions that tenants have made in the categories of the report because they're important. They share a senior's perspective, provide context to seniors' concerns, and offer a foothold to correcting the unbalanced three-legged stool of the integrated service model collaboration. It's something the STAC was created for. The STAC can be a conduit for reliable, relevant communication and play an instrumental role in drawing these disparate integrated service model silos together to cement a collaborative and cohesive foundation for continued growth. Now, there's no disrespect intended to the hard work and effort that's been invested in this project, but I can't in good conscience watch this report become part of an official record without restating again that the integrated service model framework is incomplete because there is no staff accountability to tenants, there's no mechanism to ensure senior engagement, that those needs are being respected and met. There are a couple things here going on to what Maureen had said, that the seniors housing in a couple of areas. First of all, the SSCs, how are they going to address the needs of the many seniors who are going to be coming out of 2 years of isolation, who are not in arrears and do not need added supports? These SSCs have no idea because the integrated service model does not address tenant engagement and these staff have not been trained in that area. They talk about the tenant engagement team where they're going to establish the new tenant leadership system to align with tenant engagement. This is ridiculous. There has been no tenant engagement, and as Maureen said, there is nothing in place. So what is important here,
Bill, just let you know, 20 seconds to go, please.
Thank you. What's important here is that seniors need to be included. And there's many other areas throughout this report that really do need to be reassessed because many things that have been raised as serious complaints are just continuing to pass through.
Okay, I think you may have some questions from committee members. Bill, thank you very much for speaking today. Just stay on the line and I'll see if there are any questions. Councillor Nunziata is first up.
Yeah, just a question, Bill. You mentioned there hasn't been any tenant engagement, but according to the report, that there were 10 official meetings that were held at the end of 2021 and in December 2020. So that's what's in the report. So are you saying, but you said there were no tenant engagement meetings, according to the report, there was 10.
There were no meaningful tenant engagement. The problem, and I believe this goes to the members' motion at the end of last year. The STAC committee was utilized to, not in the manner that it was originally intended, but as a rubber stamp. We were focused on things like logos. The areas that we were asked or had any conversations about were brief, like the SSD role. It was mentioned, it's listed there in the report that it shows itself as being a discussion, but it was not. It was a brief conversation that touched on the outer rims of what the role was, but there was no conversation about the actual role, how it would interact. There was no there's no context provided. So tenants have not been completely included. And just as this report points out in regards to the hubs, there is very little mention in this report that the planned use of the hubs, as well as recreation spaces in many seniors buildings, would be open to outside entities coming into the buildings, creating a whole series of security and safety issues. But those things are not in this report. Just like Maureen says, and what we've been pointing out, and I did a deputation a year ago stating the same thing, that the reports that you are receiving do not accurately reflect the reality on the ground.
Okay, Councillor Nunziata, any further questions?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Any other councillors with questions? Or, sorry, any other committee members with questions? That was maybe a little subliminal slip there, Paula.
It's okay. I'll ask. My questions are now for staff. Thank you.
Okay. Bill, I just want to ask one question. You said that there was no meaningful consultation, but did you attend any of those meetings that are outlined in the report?
I attended every one of them.
Oh, and you just felt that the discussion wasn't meaningful.
The discussions were aligned in such a way to basically bolster the preconceived outcome.
Got it. Okay, I get it. I know what you were saying. Okay, well, listen, thank you very much for bringing this forward.
No, I just have one question. Now that you asked that question.
She's got a follow-up, Bill.
I have a follow-up, Bill. You mentioned being asked for feedback, and I don't know, you're on STAC, and STAC was refreshed by City Council, correct?
Correct.
And STAC members had appeared, I don't know if this board or the seniors board, to say, we don't want to just be there for feedback. We want to be there for input. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that 100%, Councillor Fletcher.
And so what to date has been feedback, and STAC and seniors have said, we'd like to have input into the design, not just feedback once you've decided. Accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great day, and appreciate your coming forward with those comments. Now, questions of staff?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, we'll go with Councillor Nunziata first, and then Councillor Fletcher.
Yeah, I just have the one question as far as the tenant reps. So were notices in the building if there was an interest for tenant reps in advance?
So through the chair, it's Grant Coffey here. Notices would have been provided in the buildings for the communities that were put through the process to put in place tenant reps. And to date, 57 buildings went through that process. And I'm not sure if, Sheila, you might want to respond to any further details on the tenant engagement activities.
So there, through you, Mr. Chair, there is a process that the tenant engagement refresh has been working through for some time now. It starts with buildings electing whether they want a tenant rep model or a building committee model. There's then an open call for tenant reps, if it's a tenant rep model, or building committee members to come forward. Tenants elect to participate. Tenants have to be in good standing to be put forward as a tenant leader in a building. Once that's confirmed, there is an election in the building if there is more than one candidate, or the building committee selects through an election the tenant leaders in that building. So it is a fairly involved process. There have been a significant number of acclamations. During COVID, it's been difficult to have in-person meetings. We've had to rely on WebEx, but we do have records, building by building, of what happened, what meeting occurred, who attended, who was validated as a tenant in good standing, eligible for leadership, and where we stand. We have very detailed records, building by building.
Okay, Sheila, just one last question. Were there any buildings at all that didn't participate? You didn't get any comments at all, and that's where you did the acclamation?
So I just want to clarify, acclamation would happen if a building call went out for tenant rep participants to come forward, and there is only one person who comes forward and they pass through the process. That person would be acclaimed in the building. You may or may not remember, there were actually 4 choices that tenants had. They could elect to have a tenant representative, they could elect to have a building committee, they could run through an association, or they could choose not to be involved. We have a very small number of buildings that are in that category. We do, however, require someone in the building to communicate with if we're going to be rolling out funding or programming. So in that case, we will find someone in the building for that level of communication.
Yeah, because I do know some buildings that just were either not interested or, that didn't comment at all. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I was most struck by Ms. Gohasi talking about the 4 buildings under one superintendent, building superintendent, and how that's working. Her description of 4 boilers, 4 snows, 4 traveling, all of that, as I thought that our seniors model was going to be more intensive, and then that the SSCs aren't distributed over the same buildings. So the tenancy management part of the building superintendent isn't jibed with the SSCs. So could you please let me know more about that? I'm extremely concerned.
Yes, hi, through the chair, Councillor Fletcher. So with regards to the staff in the buildings, when it comes to the superintendents, the custodial maintenance, and the cleaning staff, we do have some buildings where we satellite get coverage of the building, so they will have more than one building to look after in some cases. In other cases, there will be staff dedicated to the building, and it will depend on the size of the building and the needs profile for the building. With regards to the senior services coordinators and them being they're also in the buildings. They're in a range. Some buildings have one dedicated senior services coordinator, and then in other cases, the senior services coordinator looks after up to 4 buildings when they're a smaller complement. The ratio for the senior services coordinator is in the 1 to 359 tenants right now, which is in alignment to what was part of the integrated service model accountability framework. And we've tried to balance that out so that we can cover the buildings equally with our senior services coordinators to support the tenants.
Thank you. Still don't quite understand how we have a misaligned 2 types of service delivery that aren't completely aligned for the seniors unit. I'm just going to ask that according to later report, in 37 of the 83 buildings, we're short tenant reps. And just, you understand that the seniors corporation is revisiting the tenant engagement plan, correct?
Yes, through the chair, absolutely. We are well aware that there is activity to look at the tenant engagement system in the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, and that the city is leading an effort on that front right now, and we'll be reporting recommendations back to TSHC upcoming.
I don't
So
think
we're
they're
well
doing
aware of
that.
that, yes.
They're doing that for the tenant engagement, I think.
Yes, they're looking at the engagement system, yes.
That's okay. Did we hear that already somewhere? Or anyway, I understood Stack was looking at that.
Oh, sorry, through the chair, STAC is part of that engagement. So the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee is being engaged by the city on that particular engagement system review. Yes, it is the STAC that is doing that.
It's the housing board.
With the city.
STAC,
it's the city that's leading that.
But the STAC is there as well as 2 members of the board, correct? Just so our board understands that process.
That is my understanding, yes.
Sitting formally on the review process. Okay.
That's my understanding.
I just have what's the status of this 114-page report that we have here? Has it got an official status, or is it just a nice to have?
So this report is actually part of a requirement of the city's integrated service model accountability framework. So the city laid out an accountability framework for how to implement the ISM, the different aspects of the ISM, and part of the requirement is to prepare and submit an annual program report. So this report that's attached is the first version ever of the ISM program annual report in response to this requirement from the city. So this particular report will go to the city for them to review as part of their oversight and evaluation role of the ISM.
And it was written by the city, or was written by consultant?
No, it was written by Seniors Housing Unit, Toronto TCHC staff. So the team within the Seniors Housing Unit assembled the report. We did seek guidance from the city and Senior Services with regards to the type of content and expectations on what level of detail would be in the report.
Did I hear right from the STAC, though, you didn't ask them about the report before you designed it?
We did not go to STAC in advance of the design of the report. We did work with the city and Senior Services to make sure it aligned with the accountability framework.
No, it was about STAC. You did not receive input from STAC. You asked for feedback from STAC and sent it to them before it was published. That's what Mr. Lohman said. Was he incorrect?
So we had a draft of the report that was fairly close to being complete. It's true.
Yes.
And then we engaged STAC for a review of that.
Right.
We captured their feedback and put it in one of the appendices that's in the report before you.
But as far as the input as to what a annual report should look like, wasn't a discussion that involved tenants at the front end.
We did not involve the STAC in the design of the report per se, no.
Or what it would be doing. So I'm just a little concerned about the report, and I'm going to send it over to Seniors Housing. I'm going to send it back. On Seniors Health and Wellness Hubs, I'm not sure about how accurate it is. It was City Council that said, and the hub at 145, that a tenant survey proposed at the site, that was, maybe I'm wrong, assess the feasibility of an interest in. Let's just go to page 27 of your report, please. bottom. The seniors housing unit conducted a tenant engagement to assess the feasibility of an interest in locating a seniors health and wellness club at 145 Hub. These included meeting with the stack, tenant survey at proposed site, 141 tenants reported, virtual phone tenants, etc. In here, several SHU tenants also voiced concerns, and under consideration was removed from consideration. But I'm not sure if you mean the 141 door-to-door outreach was done through you. I thought it was done by the potential provider. Page 27 or 86. Yeah, 27.
Okay, so what's, Counselor, please get to the question.
My question is, I'm trying to find out what this means.
Okay.
Well, I'm waiting for Mr. Coffey to get to the page, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
No, I'm on the page.
Now he's on the page.
So through the chair, this particular part of the report highlights at a very high level some of the work that was done to support the Seniors Health and Wellness Hub during the first year.
Yeah,
with regards to the survey,
yep.
So there was a survey done of tenants in the building that was being considered for the first Seniors Health and Wellness Hub. It was done together with the potential partner that we were looking at the time. And the results of that survey were included in a report that went to TSC last year. At that meeting is where the hub was essentially referred back to the city's tenants first team and then put on pause.
And is there mention of the tenant survey that followed that, saying that they wanted to keep the rec room themselves? It's not in here.
There is not a specific mention about the details of that particular survey in this report. However, we did note that there were concerns noted from tenants with regards to the health and wellness hub proposal, and that it was paused pending a review at the city, which they're now working on.
I think it was taken right off, but I'll speak. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Sonia, you can take that down. Thanks. Any further questions from committee members? I've got a couple of questions. Jag, I'm just wondering if the comments from the tenants who made deputations today are of concern to you, and if you have any, if there'll be any follow-up in regard to what they had to say about consultation and really being heard.
The chair, I think comments are always valuable to us as a team, and we will debrief the feedback that was received today, and we will reach out to the tenants and follow up with them, whether we can provide any clarifications or make an adjustment to our plan going forward.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher, I'll make comments after you've made comments. Go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm going to make a comment that around the hub at 145 Strathmore, I'm actually quite concerned is how it's put here, because it was quite clearly undertaken. The survey was undertaken once the agreement, after the agreement had been made to put that in there. And I think that what I heard from the tenants, and I'm also very concerned about the non-alignment of the SSCs and the buildings. This should be our core principle, and I think this all needs to be referred back or referred over to the tenants, the senior tenants board organization. But the whole idea is that these will be so aligned that the service delivery will be completely aligned. You cannot have that if you don't have an alignment on the ground. And I'm quite concerned about that. I'm concerned about this notion people feel is top heavy, but they haven't met people. And these are active tenants. So I might just refer this back to you, CEO, in order to take this issue up through STAC, through the deputy city manager, through an overarching process with the tenants, senior tenants housing board. I don't even want to call it Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, because we're in a period now where it's 2 months before they're taking over the actual operations with tenants and staff. So I just want to make sure that we don't have what I'm just going to call dichotomy, that we make sure that everything here, that we understand what has gone on. I'd take this back and send it to STAC for feedback. The deputy city manager chairs STAC. So the feedback for this would be, is there anything that needs to be realigned or any issues that we'd find arising out of this? Because at the end of the day, our involvement in this is going to end. I forget when our next board meeting is, but it's
Your
going to be ending.
involvement never ends, Paula.
Well, it will anyway, at the moment, this board's involvement will end shortly. So how do we make sure that we're handing this off, taking into account some of those concerns? So I'm just looking to our CEO to figure out the best way to do that. And
Okay,
because
Mr.
it's
Sharma?
it's clumsy right now between the two corps. Thank
All
you.
right, let him respond. Jag?
Through the chair, just as far as if I could seek a bit of clarification to say, is this the whole of the report, the integrated service model report being referred back, or is there a specific component? Happy to do either.
Well, I think maybe we should just refer this actually to a STAC meeting to review. This time it would be for feedback, but if there's anything that they want to flag as it's going forward to the new corporation, and how the new corporation would receive this report as well, I don't understand that. So if we just receive it for info, I'm just asking, receive it for info and send it over, but I don't want to approve it because I don't feel we're at that point
Well,
yet.
we're receiving it for information anyhow, so
Okay,
so
receive for information,
receive
refer
for
to the
information
CEO.
and make a referral to STAC.
Correct, thank you.
All
Good
right.
job, thank you. Yeah,
Got that, Darren?
Let me just, 1 second. I've got
Motion to receive the document and to refer it to STAC for critique and commentary.
but I'll just say, Mr. Chair, that if this is the first annual review of this, and it's required, then that document will just stand as it stands. So we'll just take that
Okay.
way, but maybe for next time, it'll be a different format. There'll be something different. I'd like that input for the 2022 model to be clarified.
Okay, and so just before we vote, I'll just, my comments on this as, you know, as a committee member on this tenant services committee, because we are to serve tenants, is that it's that somewhere there seems to be a disconnect, that staff feels they've done a fulsome and complete job of consulting with seniors, and some seniors, I don't know how representative this is, feel that they haven't been adequately and meaningfully engaged. And so, Mr. Coffey, I'm sure you've heard that, and it probably frustrates you to some degree, but nonetheless, that's what people are feeling, and that's what we have to listen to. And it's up to you and to Mr. Sharma to make sure that they, you know, for the time being anyway, that they feel that they are being listened to. So, all right. So we have the motion put forward by Councillor Fletcher. All in favor? Okay, all right, next item we move on to, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just before we
Yep.
move on, I was asked to flag that in the action item update, there was a briefing note that had been requested by the committee in relation to the economic and employment impact of revitalizations. It wasn't held when we dealt with the action items.
Correct.
I believe that was a matter that was of interest to one of the members of the board, and we wanted to make sure that there was a decision not to hold the item and that it wasn't just missed.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
think that might have been when I blacked out.
Yeah, it
believe
was
so.
when you blacked out.
Yeah.
I'd just like to refer that to the next meeting. Thank you. That action item.
Sorry,
Just
we have,
leave it
I
on
just
there.
want to note that we have city staff here in the meeting if there are questions that we
You
can
know what?
respond to at
I
present.
just want to put it to the next meeting, Dara.
Yep.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll bring it up. We'll make sure it's flagged for early attention at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so the next item is item 6, the TCHC tenant service tenant survey, and looking to now, did we want to proceed with Paula with a presentation on this?
Yes, Chair Campbell, we actually joined by Wynne Stack from Forum. I'm going to open up with some remarks and then we'll lead into a brief presentation, then open up for questions from the committee.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to share with you the results of the tenant survey that was in field from October to November. As I mentioned, I'm joined by Winsome Stack from Forum, who are external partner who led the survey, along with Erin Bradford, who's on my team and leads research efforts at TCHC. You will recall that this committee approved a new approach to the survey in the fall of last year, and our goal was to develop a more tenant-friendly survey that is shorter and focuses on general satisfaction with Toronto Community Housing Services, as well as probing on key environmental factors, such as, for example, access to the internet. As we shared in the fall, the survey was designed to provide baseline data to our new service model and align to our strategic priorities and our culture model. However, we did maintain some questions from previous surveys so as to do appropriate comparisons, which are currently underway. It should be noted, however, that there was a much smaller sample size in previous surveys, so we may not glean totally the insights desired, but as we do that work, we'll have more clarity on that. We also increased our distribution to include all households. In previous years, as you recall, we used a much smaller sample approach, and our goal was to achieve an acceptable industry response rate, which was set at 20%. I'm really pleased to say that 22% of all households responded, or close to 9,000 tenants, which is 3 times that of 2018, which is very encouraging, as well as, which was very insightful for us, 45% of respondents actually completed the survey online, which actually increased from 5% in 2018. The survey provides us with strong baseline and meaningful feedback on areas of focus for us as an organization, and as with all surveys, provides insights as to where we might want to also delve more deeply with tenants through other methods such as focus groups in the future. You'll also see in the report that there are significant opportunities for us to move tenants who have provided more neutral feedback to those that are more satisfied in the future. What is really great about this report in terms of the information that we now have, it provides a really good view of demographics, such as demographics, gender, race, and ethnicity, which allows us then to cut the data to align to these areas, as well as drill down into the regions and to the hub level. This will enable us to equip our teams to develop more focused actions to improve tenant satisfaction and set improvement targets. I'd now like to ask Wynne to walk us through the highlights of the survey, and then we'll open up for any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula, for the introduction. Okay, let's see what we got here. Erin, slide 2, perfect. So there's a lot of information to digest, so I'll try to keep it as high level as possible. But as Paula said, if you have any questions, please let us know. So what we see here on this slide, we see that a third of the tenants surveyed, 33%, they report being satisfied with Toronto Community Housing overall. So this top 2 figure of 33%, it's a net score of satisfaction. So what that means is that tenants said they were either very or somewhat satisfied, and it combines those 2 scores into 33%. And note that this is an overall metric that we ask tenants to assess their satisfaction on. So this is their overall sorry. Oh,
it's
sorry.
okay. Go ahead.
Okay. But we also ask them about satisfaction with specific services or aspects that I'm about to get into. So in terms of the specifics, we found that more than half of tenants, they're satisfied with the cleanliness of the building and their building and unit maintenance. So that's good to see. An interesting finding was that over half, they feel that Toronto Community Housing supports them to maintain their tenancy, but there is some room for improvement when it comes to connecting them to support services, as less than 4 in 10, or top 2, 37%, say that they are very or somewhat satisfied with Toronto Community Housing's efforts to connect them to support services. As well, we also found that satisfaction levels with the programs and the services offered to tenants are at 37%. But it should be noted, as Paula was mentioning, that just as many tenants, they have neutral opinions about the programs and services. So neither positive nor negative. So there is a lot of opportunity to move tenants from this neutral position to a positive position. And this may very well happen on its own post-pandemic, given that programs and services offered may have been impacted due to COVID-19. The last thing I want to touch on regarding satisfaction is that just under 4 in 10, another 37%, they're satisfied with their ability to participate in local decision-making for their building community. And again, just as many feel neutral about their ability to participate. So like I mentioned before, there is that opportunity to move them from the neutral to the positive. So we did some further analysis, and it indicated that the majority of tenants, they're not actively recommending Toronto Community Housing as a good place to live. And that's the Net Promoter Score that we see, or NPS, of -17 on the screen. But this negative score just means that there is room for improvement. So by increasing overall satisfaction levels and satisfaction levels of the individual metrics that I mentioned previously, Net Promoter Score should also increase. Okay. In terms of communications, tenants express that letters, those are the most common form of communication regularly used to receive TCH related info, with about half of them saying they receive this method of communication. But just under a third are satisfied with TCH's overall communication to tenants. We found that nearly 6 in 10 say that they would like to receive communications through text messages or emails if that were made available. So that's a good opportunity to connect with them this way. And this finding makes sense too, because we also found that 7 in 10 report to have reliable access to internet in their TCH unit. And so they can receive this type of communication through email. Okay, but there are some people who express that they do not have reliable internet. That's about 1 in 5 tenants. And the most common barrier to internet access was the cost, which might not be a surprising finding. Okay, next slide, please, Erin. Okay, so when we look to customer satisfaction on a variety of services, we found that over half are satisfied with the client care center, with local staff and staff response time, though improvements can be made in terms of satisfaction with access to one-on-one supports and with the community safety unit. In terms of both the annual rent review process and the annual unit inspection, tenants reported the process to be both easy and an overall positive experience. So that's great to see. And then the last thing I want to mention on this slide is that tenants agree overall that they feel welcomed in communal spaces, that they have pride in their community and feel a sense of belonging, that the Toronto Community Housing is considerate of not only the rights but the needs of others. So that's great. But if there were one thing that the Toronto Community Housing should improve upon, it's taking accountability in their work and decision making. So this metric, the top to 45%, it scores the lowest in satisfaction, but it also has the highest impact on overall satisfaction. So by finding ways to make your accountability and decision making process known to tenants, this will drive overall satisfaction levels up, which you understand is a key focus on the new restructuring that's currently underway. So those are the main findings, a lot to digest, but Paul and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Sorry, and what's your first name?
It's Wynn.
Wynn, sorry, just before I turn it over to committee members, I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity to delve down deeper into some of the dissatisfaction? Did people offer comments? Was there an opportunity for people to also offer comments in either good or bad?
So any open-ended information we have, it would have been reported on in the larger report, but I don't believe we have too many of those. Paula, I'll defer that to you if there were any key findings on any elaboration to any negative.
So I just
stats
want to
Brian
know, I
mentioned.
just want to know if they said that they were, for example, very dissatisfied with customer service, as 15% did. Was there an opportunity when they clicked the bar, they were very dissatisfied, to also offer a comment?
Not within this, sorry if I may through the chair, not within the actual space direct to question, but we did have the opportunity for open-ended comments towards the end. So what we're in the process of doing is really aligning those comments that we've received with the specific elements of dissatisfaction that have been identified overall within the survey. So that analysis is currently underway. We're also taking a look back, just to add to that, where we may have had similar questions in the past, whether or not there's any correlation there, so that we can actually provide a more fulsome view over year as well.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to committee members for questions. Any questions from committee members? Councillor Fletcher? Councillor Nunziata then?
Just wondering, this is an anonymous survey, of course, but was there any data captured kind of west, central, east in any way, or postal code?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Fletcher. Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this report, actually, is we're able, within the document itself, you'll see that a number of the responses are categorized within each of the regions. And then we're also able to do separate reports, which takes it down to the hub level as well. So we do have a regional view, as well as the capability to delve deeper into a more hub level view now that we'll have those up and running.
So you can go to the hub level based on what?
The survey, the overall survey, or specific questions. So if we wanted, so for example, if we chose something like building cleanliness, we could look at it at a hub level. And the reason for us being able to do that, or why we wanted to do that, was that we can actually—
How are you able to do that is the question.
We can actually slice the reports in different ways. So we have fields that we can input that would actually ask us to output that information.
So by certain one hub, by one area, that's just one hub, that building, those buildings in that hub would be captured somehow where you don't know who said it, but you know what was said.
Absolutely. And the survey was anonymous, as you, but there are reference points for us to be able to capture the alignment to the regions and the hub level as well.
Thank you. So the next question has to do with the community categorization. If we're able to align the different levels around the communities, especially where people feel there's things aren't going as well, are we able to kind of back up our findings around categories by overlaying this on those buildings or on those development areas?
Yes, Councillor Fletcher, so another great question. So again, we can align this data specific to overall sentiment related to communities, how safe people feel, tenants feel, but also as it relates to the feedback on CSU as well. So we're able to, we actually have already reached out to our operations partners to see how we start to connect those data points so that we have a more richness of data to support, as you say, the work that's underway.
And specific questions on safety, on how safe people feel, they feel safe in their community.
Yes, and actually what's really, I think—
Can you just tell me where that is and what the scores were?
Yes, so actually overall satisfaction, at a top level is 44%. I think that's slide 13. I think Aaron can bring it up if you need. But what we can also do, which I think will also be helpful to us as an organization, is then look at that data through the lens of different demographics. So we actually have already started to do some of that work. So for example, we know that tenants feel safer as age increases. So we've been able to see a definite increase in terms of tenants' feedback on safety from an age perspective. We're also then be able to break it down across race and ethnicity, given the strength of the sample size that we have. So we're also able to see, whether or not how this applies within different groups as well. And we can actually integrate those two pieces of information as well. So if you want to see age and ethnicity, we could do that kind of report also.
You didn't pull the seniors out discreetly as we're supposed to, so that the seniors.
Well,
corporation can have the same data?
so this is really interesting. So we actually chose initially not to include the seniors buildings within this survey, and that was a deliberate or intentional decision because they had done their own independent survey. That said, we have remaining a considerable cohort of seniors within our existing buildings. So their feedback, I think we had 30% feedback from seniors. So we're actually able also to delve deeper on those particular specific insights that have been shared by that group that responded.
Thank you. And the community safety levels, are you able to correlate extremely dissatisfied with our communities that we're starting to scope where we believe there's more issues than not?
So yeah, so we'll be able to look at the focus of the strategy that's underway and then align this data accordingly across multiple different factors. So that would be the goal, yes.
And if you had three areas that you wanted to advise the board, and I'm very happy to see where people are very satisfied, but if you have 3 areas that are flagged to you by this report that obviously the corporation needs to focus on and the board needs to be clear that these are areas, what would they be?
I think as Wynne stated, it's really in that high level piece, which is around accountability, local level decision making. And then I would also say likely within our ability to look across targeting the data across different segments and being very specific on areas that are key focus areas, as you specified, Councillor Fletcher, that we're actually doing the work to align the data to support that work. So specifically 2 items, accountability and local decision making, which, you know, as Wynne had said, I mean, I think we're well underway with that in terms of the hubs, but this really gives us an opportunity to set targets against that in terms of how we do that work and what are our measurables and what work is underway, which is really, you know, a really good thing for us to have. But then more broadly, how are we actually using this data to really align to some of the key strategies we have in the organization? And that as a board, my recommendation would be that we always look at this data to support some of that work that's underway as a key information point.
So that would be the recommendation from this report, is to further hone those areas that need more work and come back and say, here's how we're doing that.
Absolutely.
So we're on top of it. Okay, thank you so much.
Councillor Nunziata?
I just have one question. I can't remember the percentage that on the survey as far as cleanliness. What was the percentage on that they were very satisfied?
Wynne, can you pull that up, or Aaron?
56%.
Yeah, I believe it's 56.
56%?
31% very satisfied and 25% somewhat satisfied.
Okay, so 56. So the percentage, are we able to know which buildings, if they're in-house or contracted buildings? When it comes to,
Are we able to go to that level of detail?
We can do it at the hub level, building
Yes.
level, because that might compromise the anonymity. So we had to stick with the hub level.
okay, because I'd be interested in that. Okay, thank you.
Any comments from the tenant directors on the board about the survey? No. Marcel, any questions? No. Uba? No.
No, I don't have any comments, but I did respond to Mrs. Knight's request on my input. I did that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I saw that. Okay. And so, Jag, I just would like to know your feedback. Of course, now the bar has been set, and your job is to turn everything green, right? Okay.
George,
Well,
Through the
in
chair.
1 year, you forgot to say in
Yeah.
1 year, John. Yeah.
It's a tall order through the chair, and but what I'm thrilled about is the level of response and the type of response. This is incredible data, and what I'm very focused on is the opportunity for us to use this to help focus us as an organization, and I think it's an incredible step forward for us.
okay. And I have a question from Forum Research. who tends to respond to surveys such as this? Is it generally the happy or the disgruntled?
That's a great question, and the answer is both. So people who are willing to do these types of surveys because they are completely voluntary, it's because they want their voices heard. So if it's not a true random sample, it's usually affected a little bit by self-selection bias, because people either want their voices to be heard because they have something very positive to share, or they have a very negative experience that they want to share. So we usually see polar opposites. Either a survey will skew negative or positive, or a mix of both, depending on the people that respond to the survey. But it's usually those people that we see either really eager to share positive or negative feedback.
Got it. Okay. And then from a going forward standpoint, what measures could we do to encourage an even bigger response, like get this up to 40% or 50%? And I guess that's really a question for the CEO. What can we do? I mean, can people be enticed with little goodies or something, or how could we get people a higher response rate?
Thank you for the question, Chair, and I'd invite Paula to join me in the response, but I believe they've already started to look at that. What they've started to analyze is the trends. For example, more individuals participated in the survey electronically, and our mechanisms of being able to reach them more effectively to make them aware of the survey. And as well, we do agree, if we can create opportunities through small incentives and things of that sort to increase participation rates, all of that is being contemplated by Paula and her team, but those are conversations that are being had currently.
Okay. All right. Okay. So motion to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Nunziata. Thank you. All in favor? All right. So now we move on to the Chief Operating Officer's reports, and I will ask. So there are 4 reports, and in the interest of time, I will ask if any of the committee members wishes to hold any of the reports.
Is there a deputant on any of these, Mr. Chair?
Not on these. The next deputant is on item number 8.
Sorry, I thought somebody was.
Do any of the directors have any questions on any of these reports?
Yeah, I do have one. It's about the pest, pulling out the seniors.
The pest control is item number 9. I'm just looking at the items in number 7 right now.
Yep, and I'm there on 7 in the reporting. Demand pest treatments by region, page 239. I'm wondering why the seniors weren't delineated there, where they are by vacancy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a further, more detailed report on annual pest control under item 9.
And I understand, but I'm asking why it's not here, Madam CEO, because this is, you go to one place to look up your stats, all aggregated.
So we can break that out in the next cycle. The information is, and I appreciate it's in another report, is in item 9, but we will pull it out going forward.
So are you telling me that these statistics include the seniors then?
Correct.
Didn't we have an arrangement that all seniors info would be broken out in every report?
We did, and we've missed it here.
I think it's kind of the number 1. So gather we have that later on, but I do think it should be in the central one. And then I want to go to the vacancy rates, because those are, of course, always critical with so many people looking for housing. Page 243. Non-rentable by non-rentable, rentable vacant, and non-rentable vacant. Can we just run over those, please?
Yep.
So we understand the status of those. I think, Mr. Chair, this is really incumbent on us to.
Yeah, so that's item 10A, and that's on page 8 of 13 of the report.
Well, I'm on page 8 of 13. That's correct.
Yeah.
In item 7A.
Got it.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, if we're looking at page 8 of the report, it details the rentable vacant units as of January 2022, West Central East and seniors, non-rentable West Central East and seniors. So those are our rentable vacancies, a total of 1,090. Rentable vacancies in the family portfolio, 489 in the seniors portfolio, and then our non-rentable vacant units by category, 1,929 broken out into the 4 big buckets: rebite units that are held for legal reasons, non-residential use, and units where we have capital repairs underway.
So just on this, because your total for West, Central, and East is what? I have 936, but.
So the total as reported on page 5 of 13 is 1090.
5 of 13.
Correct. 5 of 13, vacancy, family, where we call out.
When I go to page 8, and I'm looking at table 3, rentable vacant units by region of portfolio, January 2022. Maybe my math is poor, but I have a different number than that.
Here, I'm just checking.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
1036. There is a discrepancy. The counselor is correct. So we'll get that corrected. The total number of vacant units in the family portfolio is 1090. So our breakdown is 53 units off.
okay.
And just the total rentable right now in January 2022 is 1,525 units available that aren't non-rentable, because you have
That's what I have as well.
later that shows why we can't rent certain units. That's quite a high number. Are they RGI or what are they?
So in the family portfolio, what we're experiencing is a very high vacancy rate with our bachelor portfolio in our high needs buildings. So 24% of our portfolio are bachelor units, and the vacancy rate in those units is in excess of 40%. So that increase in vacancy in those bachelor units is something that we're working with our service manager on. We've moved to the choice-based letting system, which has really highlighted this, where we see very few offers being made on the bachelor units that are being offered through the choice-based system. We have more offers than enough on the 1, 2s, 3s, and 4 beds. So the bachelors will be and are an area of focus for us to figure out why vacancy rates in those buildings are increasing and what we can do about it. So
of those 1036, sorry to interrupt you, how many are bachelors then, please?
So I have the stats for the 1090 number. There were
well, that's fine. We'll go with that. That's okay.
570 of the 1090 were bachelors. So a very significant proportion.
Anything further, Councillor Fletcher?
Yeah, and the seniors. So there's 500 family size that are vacant, and it doesn't show that they're getting ready, if you know what I mean. In the next chart, they're rentable, which to me means somebody can move in. Right. And 489 for the seniors. That is almost the same as the 570 or the half that are available for families. So on the seniors, what's the issue? That's a tremendous number of units for seniors that are empty.
So I believe General Manager Coffey is on the call, and I would ask him to speak to the seniors vacancy rate.
Yep, there is.
Yes, hi, I'm through the chair. Thank you. Yeah, so with regard to the vacancies in seniors, we are actively working, similar to the comments that have been provided already, through the system with the city to ensure that we're turning units over as fast as we can. We're monitoring with regards to our move in and move out. We traditionally have a bit of a higher rate of move out in the early part of the year. So this is reflecting a bit of that. And as we continue to move in putting in place some of our new resources with the integrated service model, for example, we're hoping to continue to be able to more effectively manage the vacancies.
I think it's extremely high. I'm concerned. Then under repairs required, maintenance required. What does that mean, and why is that 374 units, and how quickly do you turn those around?
So through you, Mr.
So,
Chair. Oh,
this is
speak for the family portfolio, or Grant, did you want to speak?
Well,
for
it's number 5, and it doesn't have the category of broken out. It's simply all units.
Correct.
So I think that's your question, Sheila.
Okay, so these are units where tenants have moved out, and it isn't a simple unit turn where we have to do not major capital, but we have to replace kitchens, close bathrooms, where we have to do more significant repairs than we would do in a usual turn. So that's maintenance required, planned capital repairs required. Those are very significant capital repairs that usually in buildings we've taken out floors or larger areas in buildings that require significant repair. So we make the distinction between major capital and units that are still require larger repairs than a typical unit turn.
Those are actually unrentable because you couldn't. But I'm really concerned about maintenance required and how quickly those are turned around. Do you have that? Can you bring that to the board, please? That information on those 374, how long they've been empty and what the turnaround is, because that's 374 families and seniors that on top of the other 500,000 units. So altogether, we have about 1,300 units available, and we don't seem to be filling them. So I just need to tell everybody, and I will when I speak, how concerned I am about that.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher, why don't you make that a motion on that particular 7A as we receive it. I'm going to have Marcel, you'll speak next, but Councillor Fletcher, why don't you think of a motion?
I will, yep.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Marcel. He's got questions.
Now?
Yep, please.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering, like, as far as like trying to fill the vacancies, are you like going beyond like what standard as far as like offering units, like unit offers and stuff? Are you finding other ways to outreach within the community? Like you say like some of the units are high needs. So in those buildings that are high needs, you must have higher support staff in those buildings, right?
Correct. And if I could, through you, Mr. Chair, we have initiated, as a result of COVID, a very good program for those buildings called Rapid Rehousing, where we work with the shelter system, identify individuals to come into Toronto Housing. When they come in, they're provided with furniture, a little bit of clothing, food allowance, and supports in those buildings. And we have been able to, we've had 3 phases of rapid rehousing, over 1,000 units. So that is a strategy to identify and support individuals coming out of the shelter system. The city, through the choice-based system, is also opening up the pool of individuals who will be given an opportunity to bid on those units, and they're extending the time that individuals have to respond. So it is an area of focus for us to deal with a high level of bachelor vacancies.
Okay, that's really good. But like beyond that, as like, do you have a team that actually takes a look at like how they can enhance their outreach to cut down the vacancies? Like, just when you were talking, I was just thinking about like there's a lot of community agencies out there. I don't know like if TCHC does any kind of like a head lease with an agency for like 5 or 6 units, and then they keep them filled and provide the rent, or about maybe like when people are coming out of provincial corrections, if they have a discharge planner, maybe connecting with them to offer some kind of housing for them, so they don't end up in the shelter system or end up on the street, right? And even with the people that are living on the street, the hardcore homeless, a lot of them don't want to move because they don't want to be separated from their family that they've created in that thing. And if you have that many units, would it be possible to actually house them as a community in a section of those units on maybe one floor, if you have a whole bunch of vacancies there, and provide like a safety mechanism for them? But that's it.
But those are Director Charlebois, those are ideas that the team will take away. We'd have to, work with the service manager, but those are ideas that the team will take away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from committee members before I ask a question? I have a question, Sheila. It's on 7B, and it's in regard to the CRA tax issue. And it's referenced on page 4 of 5 or 252 of the agenda. And just a simple question, I just want to know, do we have a sense as to how many people are calling and how many people are affected by this issue?
So I don't have I see something coming up. I don't have the specific stats to that question, but there was a significant increase if you go back to report 7A,
okay,
there was a significant increase in calls coming in January, an increase of over 2,700 calls, 33% increase in calls related to account balances, and we believe due to the lifting of the rent freeze and this question as well. So a big uptick in calls about rent, about this particular matter coming in for sure.
Okay, all right. I don't have any further questions. Councillor Fletcher, do you have your motion ready?
I do. Just looking to report to the board on the information on the 374 non-rentable units that are being held for minor repairs, broken down by region, including seniors, dates of vacancy, and when they will become on the market.
Okay, Dara, you got that for 7A?
I do.
Is that okay, Dara? Do you want me to repeat that? Are you good?
I think I'm good.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so we'll just, we will vote on that item on its own, and then we'll vote on the receipt of 7B, C, and D separately. So all in favor of Councillor Fletcher's motion? Okay, that's approved. And then on receipt of information found in 7B, C, and D, all in favor? Okay. That's all, and we'll say that was moved by Uba because.
No, I have a question, John, at 7D.
Oh, and 7D. All right, so we've approved 7B and C, and we'll hold item 7D. And go ahead, Uba.
Yes, and when I read the report, I remember Sheila, you and I and John and Alan and Richard, we met, and then you and I and Alan and Richard, we met, and then you and I, we spoke over the phone several times for the same issue. And to my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what I understand and what I believe you and I agreed was to have, if somebody's gonna fix in a small way their basement, such as painting, fixing the floor, closing the dry and washer area, then they wouldn't need any permission. But if they were to build rooms and etc. and bathrooms, what have you, then they have to go through TCHC, go to the city, obtain what do you call a permit, and also use the constructors that's already pre-approved by TCHC. That's not what I see here when I read this report. And you and I, we even speak to in length in terms of to make this a policy. So if someone leaves tomorrow, then it's not, you know, open to in interpretation or change. It's a policy. So what happened? That did I misunderstood? Like what happened? So also, sorry. When I read, it says, due to COVID-19, people want to have fixed their basement because only to do homework and work purpose. That's not it. We just learned and we heard over the years. Yeah. Even though we are 4% of the population, majority of crimes happen on TCHC property. So this is a safety mechanism for families to make sure that their kids have a basement that feels at home, that they can sit, that they make sure their kids are not out there on the hallways or outside getting shot and killed. So this is bigger than just for recreation or work or education. I'm a bit surprised. I don't know what happened.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Director Farrett, we did have an aspiration that we would be able to do more in the basements of our townhouses to provide additional space for families when this concept, including putting up drywall in the basement and possibly putting down flooring, when it was reviewed by our legal and risk team, those additional pieces of work are not something that we can accommodate in our portfolio, in our rental portfolio. And I'd ask Dara to speak more on that, if you don't mind.
No. So we did reach out. Sheila did bring the matter to us and ask us to consider it. And from a legal perspective, we identified concerns related to a differentiation between different kinds of work and perhaps a misunderstanding of what would and wouldn't require a building permit in relation to this kind of construction. As well, we did reach out to our insurer in relation to the potential risks that they would have concerns about in relation to a program that would permit TCHC tenants without our knowledge to undertake renovation to buildings that we own and have responsibility for. And so the report that you have back, that the committee has back before it today is informed by that advice and represents our best advice as to what a position TCHC should take in relation to the issue of basement renovations.
So in short, tenants can decorate the basement, they can paint, they can put down loose flooring, they can divide space with furniture, but they cannot construct. And that's as
they cannot build a wall.
Correct. Or they could not put drywall up over the perimeter that would enclose the basement space.
what is the risk associated by that? I don't understand. If we're gonna go through the city and get permit and make sure that we send professional contractors who already built your homes, what is the issue? As I said, this is much more than decoration and much more than doing a homework or having you know, a luxury space or doing work. I mean, we're all going back to offices and what have you now. Hopefully the COVID is going to be over. This is much bigger than that. This is a safety.
Yeah.
Tenants say time and time and time again, if we listen to tenant and we care about tenant and we want to meet their needs, I mean, people want it's a matter of, you know, saving lives, keeping people to make sure that they keep their kids at home.
So if I could, through you, Mr. Director, if we wanted to undertake a program where we move forward with renovations to basements, which I believe is, Director, about where you are wanting to go. If we wanted to move forward with a program like that, we would have to have tenants make application. We would have to prepare drawings and specifications. We would have to go through the city's process to obtain a building permit. We would have to construct and sign off. We can do that. There are funding implications attached to that, and there are changes to tenancies in buildings if we're adding bedrooms or changing the occupancy of the unit. So we could do that, but it would have to be through a TCHC program.
So essentially, it's no, if I may, it's no different than if we were a private apartment owner.
Correct.
Right. All right. Uba, if you want to just hold off for a second, Councillor Nunziata seems to have questions or comments.
Yeah, just a question. So what we don't want, or we would have to be notified if they want to convert it to a basement apartment.
A basement apartment or add a bedroom.
Right.
Plumbing.
And get another tenant in, because TCHC would have to be notified, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Uba, anything further?
I don't know. I'm frustrated. I mean, I respect the rules and regulations. I get that, but I see the tenants' frustration. People are in tears when they get letters from an inspection people and saying that you have to fix this basement on your expenses. Half of the tenants, to be honest with you, already built their basements, whether it's right or wrong. So what are we going to do about it? Are they going to pay for demolishing that? I mean,
I think there needs to be some.
And I think you just mentioned something, Sheila, in terms of who's going to pick the expenses. You and I, we talked about in those meetings, if TCHC will allow, tenants will pay out of pocket to build whatever extra they're gonna build. So they're not expecting for TCHC to build extra room or extra bathroom or extra whatever drywall. It's gonna come out of their pocket. That's fair, and I think that you and I, we agreed on that.
So if I could, Director, we could bring back a subsequent report with the process that a tenant could go through to do renovations, true renovations in a basement unit. But it would involve, you know, making an application, having our staff get drawings and specifications, bringing in an approved contractor and overseeing the work. So we could put a program together to do that, if that's the will of the committee.
I think that what Uba is looking for is a less bureaucratic solution where perhaps staff is not involved, but knows what's going on and approves what's going on, because some of the people in these apartments will have the skills to be able to put up a wall. And as long as it receives approval, you know, if it can receive the approval of a building inspector from the city, they don't necessarily want TCHC staff to come in and build it and do the drawings and do. I mean, these are probably fairly simple changes. Is that what you're thinking, Uba?
That's what I was originally thinking. Thanks, John. But if TCHC is saying we can't have that, it's liability, it's insurance, it's risk, we want our own constructors to go in and assess the situation and fix. And if tenants are willing to pay, that's something that I can actually entertain.
Okay, so why don't we, Dara, why don't we call that a motion for staff to come back and report to the board, the next board meeting, when this is to be received, on a process whereby tenants can work with TCHC to initiate improvements to basement apartments, physical improvements to basement apartments other than just decorating.
Understood.
Can I just add to that, John? Let's understand what the steps are for different types of room dividers as required from the building code, because there are building code issues here. And I don't know if some of those can be inspected and they meet code. The ones you're talking about, Uba, that if they meet the code, do they have to be taken out or not? How would that be determined? I guess if there's electrical, you always do need a building permit. So that would be just helpful to understand what all those requirements are while we're looking at how to make this happen, okay?
By way of clarification, are we specifically speaking to townhouse units, or I'm just thinking we are about to transfer a number of single family detached and semi-detached properties. Are we looking specifically at townhouses as far as this is concerned? And are we only talking about a program, just to clarify for the request, that contemplates these kind of renovations at a tenant's cost, at a tenant's expense, or are we looking at I think at a tenant's expense? And Uba, is it townhouses, or is it
we're transferring the other units, so I think that they are not part of it.
Since we're transferring, yeah, I think it's whatever we keep in that has a basement.
Okay.
Direct staff to report to the board on a process through which tenants can work with TCHC in order to effect physical improvements to basements and townhouses owned by TCHC at the tenant's expense.
That's fine.
Does that include the issue about what requires building permit and doesn't, Dara?
Yes, it would.
Yeah, okay, great,
So
thank you.
that's moved by Uba. Okay.
Great.
All right, all in favor? Okay, great. And motion to receive the report? All in favor? All right, that's done. Okay, so that completes
Thank you so much, Sheila. I know you work so hard with this. You met with me and connect with me over the phone, and I really appreciate it. I don't want my frustration to come across as if I'm not grateful. I am grateful all the work that you put in.
And thank you, if I could, Director, for raising this today so that we can move this piece forward. And if tenants truly want this work and can fund it, we'll do the work gladly.
Thank you.
Sheila's embarking on a carpentry course, right? So after April 1st, so she might be able to lend a hand. Okay.
Just do that work.
Mr. Chair, did we have a mover for 7A and B, or B and C rather?
Well, the mover was Councillor Nunziata.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And now we move on to item number 8, the Community Safety Unit 2021 Annual Report to Toronto Police Services. And we have a deputant on this. We have Mr. Miguel Avia Varade. Miguel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. Good morning.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, so
if I go over time, yes. If I go over time, my deputation was emailed to all the members via the Secretary Committee. So I spoke on this matter at the last meeting of the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee. I mentioned to the committee that at Regent Park, we have a systemic problem in relation to reporting. It seems that it is an outdated system process to report stolen e-bikes, stolen bikes from TCHC properties, and incredibly from condominium residents that live here in Regent Park. So I understand this matter will be passed on to the COO, which is Sheila Penny. And by the way, today is her last day. So my question is, who will be in charge of undertake the process of finding out if there is a huge number of e-bikes or bikes stolen from TCHC properties? So I'm here to speak on the issue of training. TCHC shall provide to the board an annual report with statistical information, including but not limited to information regarding enforcement activities, training, supervision, complaints, and other issues of concern to the parties, and such further categories of information as may be requested by the board from time to time. This is found in page 1 of this report to the TPS. So one of the things we learned after my girlfriend Barbara got her e-bike stolen from a parking e-bike parking on 220 Oak Street last March 9, 2022, is that we detect that there is a problem, a gap on the training, because when we reported to the community safety unit the break and enter of the e-bike parking shed garage, no one dispatched CSU officer, special constable, to take our statements, full statements, and or take a look at the broken padlocks at 220 Oak. So we find that this lack of training needs to be flagged for improvement, since we are sending this report to the Toronto Police Services. And thank you to Councilor Anciara for being here and to listen to this for consideration, that the training is kind of needs improvement. Another issue that we have also learned is the issue of communication. So community safety units provided us with a service number which was transferred to 51 Division here in Ward 13. Now, what happened is that we never heard back from the special constable assigned to the file. He never said to us, hey, by the way, guys, you need to call 51 Division so that you can get your police report, or as they call it, general occurrence number. So when we called 51 Division, we were told that this will take weeks, and we find out that it's about the issue of transcribing information passed by the CSU unit to the Toronto Police. So it's kind of interesting to learn this, because with all the money we're funding the Toronto Police, with all the money we're doing to hire more special constables, how is it possible to learn that transcribing documents from one agency to another agency is such a difficult task to get?
Miguel, you've got 30. Miguel, sorry, you've got 30 seconds.
And this experience is also shared by the condominium residents. Same issues, same problems, and we need solutions. So please take that under advice. So the community is really frustrated with the whole process of reporting to TCHC, Community Safety Unit, and the Toronto Police Services for investigation of e-bikes and bikes stolen. And please fix your training process, because really is lagging. It needs some improvement for the benefits of both people living in Regent Park, right? Condominium residents and TCHC.
Okay,
and thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Sheila. Goodbye.
Right.
Thank you for helping us. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you, Miguel. Thank you for your deputation today. Are there any questions of the deputed? Okay, seeing none, will someone move receipt of item number 8? Councillor Nunziata moves that. All in favor? And the next item is number 9, the annual pest control report. I don't know if anyone has any questions there. Okay,
Yes, I
Councillor
do.
Fletcher has some questions on the pests.
I do, in particular, the bed bug pests, which I really think these reports should be at the beginning, Mr. Chair, because these are everything that our tenants live with. And by the time we get to the end of the meeting,
Well, we had a lot
we're a
of
little
things-
tired. I'm
we had
just
a lot of-
flagging that,
you
just
know,
flagging it. I think this
Could've
is
put
our
it-
big job
I guess
here.
we could have put it ahead the overall survey or the integrated service model, suppose.
Correct. That this is the meat and potatoes, making sure that have the oversight over this.
Okay,
So
your
I'm-
questions?
Pardon me?
What question, you have some questions of staff, please.
Yes, I do. My first question could be, why is this at the end? But I won't. I'm looking at, when we're doing this again, I don't see the seniors unit broken out in the same way. And for repeat, I think I'm always concerned with pest controls. And when I see the number of multiples, that becomes an issue for me. That's page 298. Multiple treatments. 27% for bed bugs, more than, well, once, twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 times, more than 3, 1,060. That's a lot of treatment. And I'd like to understand how that's set across the whole portfolio. Are these in areas where we consider that we have a lot of vulnerable developments, vulnerable areas? Are they in seniors? How are those broken out? And I know that's asking for a lot of detail. We have mice, cockroaches, but the bed bugs, when we look at more than, that's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, more than 4, because 0 is your first time, right? Just on that chart, could you answer that one, Sheila, please? 4A, table 4A.
Yeah.
If 0 means that's your first treatment. It's
That's
not
correct.
multiple. So there's 1 treatment, second treatment is number 1, third treatment is number 2, fourth treatment is number 3, more than 5, more than 4 treatments.
Correct.
It looks like it's more than 3, but it's actually more than 4.
More than 3, right.
Well, more than 4, actually. If I just want to get this chart right because it's discerning for me.
So it would be
0 is the first treatment that you have.
correct.
1 is the second treatment that you have. 2
Correct.
is the third treatment that you have. 3 is your fourth treatment. And more than fourth treatment is that category that says more than 3. So what I'm seeing is that for 1,000 units, there are more than 4 treatments. And that could be up to 6, it could be up to 8, it could be a lot. We don't want you, I have no idea, because it's just more than 4 treatments. So I just need to have the chart correct.
Clarified.
Because number 1 is a treatment, it should show as a treatment, not as 0, my opinion. But I think you might agree with that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've got Richard Groch on the line, our Senior Director of Business Ops. I'm going to ask him to respond to that question. Councillor, I just wanted to point out on table 1, we do break out by pest, the pest treatments in east, west, central,
yes.
seniors. So it is
correct. Thank
it is
you.
there, but the multiple treatments are not broken out by seniors. And Richard, if you could respond to the councillor's concern regarding table 4A.
Through the chair, it's related to additional treatments, so it's a wording misworded. It's not multiple, it's additional, and the 0 would actually reflect abandonment mid-treatment. So we'll take those 2 tables away, we'll adjust the language and adjust how we report it.
I'm sorry, 0 reflects abandonment mid-treatment?
It's an abandonment mid-cycle, so our contracts are set up in a way that requires a minimum of 3 visits by a pest control vendor. treatments 1, treatments 2, and then a third, which is either a treatment or a clearance inspection that triggers a warranty provision, which is one additional visit by the vendor than that of provincial guidelines.
So every unit that has bed bugs has 2 treatments and perhaps a third.
That's correct. It requires 3 visits from the vendor. 2 are liquid pesticide applications. On the third, it's an inspection, potentially a dusting and preventative barrier treatment, and then a clearance that would trigger a 90-day warranty provision.
So I think we're interested in how many come back after 90 days and where they are and who. And what's the cost and value of our pest control?
Approximately 2.75 million annual. That includes family and seniors portfolio.
And how many vendors?
There is 4 vendors, I believe, currently.
So I think that for this, just looking at vulnerable communities and how many return visits there are, counts of units requiring multiple treatments. That's table 4B. Can you explain that one to me, please? Oh, it's 2020. So that's 2021, then we have 2020. And it's pretty consistent, isn't it?
It is. It's much of the correct, and it's a reoccurring challenge around multiple treatments. It's related to our limitations around how we can discharge the pesticides during the pandemic while individuals are remaining within their unit. So we've modified the manner in which we do the treatments, limit their requirement to vacate the unit and remain out for the 4 hours. It's drove up the requirement around multiple visits, its effectiveness.
I see. When this are these reports going to the board? But I want to see the 2019 comparable. That's the non pandemic time. Have you got the same information in that way?
I believe we did modify our reports in 2019 per your request, and we do have those numbers.
Okay, could you send that out to the committee, or Derek, could you send that out to us after, please, so we have a comparator?
Any further questions?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't get the answer yet.
Yeah, no, we can do that. To respond to the councillor's question, these reports are intended to be received by Tenant Services Committee. They don't necessarily go to the board, but we can provide the information as a follow-up to committee members.
We'll put that in Business Horizon too with the 3. So I just have to understand this because it's of interest, and maybe it should go. Like this material, I'll move that it be sent over to the seniors unit, please. Or not the seniors unit, but prepared or sent to the new housing corporation. But you're telling me number 1, 0 is the first treatment and they just come in. Number 2, they have to go. And number 3 is when it would be either treated or signed off as okay.
That's correct. So it will either require additional treatments or it would receive a clearance that generates the warranty.
So I just can't understand how that jumps from 380. That's your first time. Then you have 332. You're not going back to all 380. Is that right? But can you walk me through
that? Through the chair, I believe what we need to do is change the wording as we go into the table and talk about abandonment rates as we go up in treatment requirements. That's the challenge in this one, and I'll take that away and remedy that and send it back.
But if we're just having 380 and then 332, and then all of a sudden it's 1589, where does that come from? From previous warranties or where? Those aren't new treatments. We're looking at discrete treatments, or are you not? Very hard to understand this. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but I think
it's all right.
We need to really understand how this is put together, and I appreciate your patience, Richard.
I'm happy to report back. Thank you.
Well, what is the 1589?
1589, to my understanding, is the number of treatments that take place or they would abandon. I will have to confirm that and report back.
So, Mr. Chair, let's just, do we get one of these every time, or this is 2021 and 2020? I think I'm just going to refer this to the next meeting along with the 2019, so we can really understand how this table's put together and give Mr. Gross some time. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's a motion that you would like them to come back with these tables as well as the 2019 results?
Yeah, 2019 comparator.
Comparator.
Be able to explain how we go from 383 to 1589, but it's just very hard to understand. So I think maybe the staff just need to do a bit of work on that piece. And that's great. Thank you.
All right. So that motion's been moved by Councillor Fletcher. Darry, you got the gist of that?
I do.
Okay. All in favor? All right, and that's also includes receipt of the report, I guess. Okay.
Sorry, just to be, I think I
Clear.
got it. I understood that the decision of the committee was to refer this to the
Yes.
next meeting of the
Correct.
committee, supplemented with the information for the year
Yes,
2019.
yeah.
So it hasn't really been received yet. That's all.
Right. I'm not
Okay.
moving to receive it. I'm moving to refer it to the next.
Refer it. Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay. So referral has been moved. We voted on it. That's great. We're all clear there. Okay. Okay. One more item on the agenda, and that's the annual unit inspection results. Item number 10. Any comments or questions on that? Okay. Seeing none, could I have a motion to receive that report?
Well, can I just ask, what happens if people aren't home? And
Through you, Mr. Chair, Richard, would you that up, please?
Through the chair, the annual unit inspection launched in May of last year, and there would have been multiple occasions where staff attended. We issue notices of entry and would have rights of entry under that notice of entry, should the tenant not be home. But there is multiple attempts, including letters that are sent to the tenants.
thank you.
Okay. All right. A motion to receive that report. Moved by Marcel. All in favor? Okay. Motion to adjourn is always in order. Moved by Marcel, and all in favor. And that's it. Sheila, you're out of here. All righty.